Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Weekly Collective, a business podcast for the rest of us. I am your host, Nick. This episode is brought to you in part by Locology.com. Locology is a digital marketing agency with an emphasis on the science behind what they do. Everything they do is largely based around the tracking of data, analyzing, and finding solutions that ensure their clients get the best possible ROI that they can with their internet marketing. Locology is your one-stop shop for all things digital marketing, handling everything from website design and development itself to search engine optimization and pay-per-click campaigns. Based in the US, Locology has a firm understanding of what it takes to market your product or service effectively and can do so on a contract-free basis. Whether you're just getting started with your business or are an industry veteran looking to expand, Locology can get you where you need to be. Visit their website at locology.com and sign up within the month of July to receive 25% off your new website or website redesign. This episode is also brought to you by ThingLister. The ThingLister is the fastest way to find things to do in your city tonight. Sign up for the beta today at ThingLister.com and check us out on Twitter at ThingLister. That's ThingLister.com. As with any new project or product or service or whatever you want to call it, Weekly Collective is not unique in that they're kind of trying to fill out what their role in this podcast space is. So I guess in saying that, I mean, I'm going to switch up the format a little bit this episode. We actually don't have a guest, so I thought I would just go over some questions I've seen asked on Reddit, answer them to the best of my ability. A lot of this is just opinion on my part. I'll do what I can to answer from firsthand experience, but a lot of it's just going to be my advice. And to be honest, I'm just another guy. I may or may not have more experience in something I'm talking about, but I've kind of dabbled in this on other episodes, but take advice for what it's worth to you, I guess. There'll be lots of people that'll tell you why X is wrong or why you should do Z instead, and they might be right and they might not. Everyone, there's a really neat Steve Jobs quote. It goes, "When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much. Try to have a nice family, have fun, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you, and you can change it, you can influence, and you can build your own things that the other people can use. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again." That's a really, really cool quote that I'm glad I found. I found it ages ago. But it sums up things nicely. As a silly example, I've shown it to my grandma several times because she's of the old-fashioned mindset that certain things are for certain people and other people should like he just says live your life, try not to bash into the walls too much, have a nice family, so on and so forth. And I've kind of shown it to her, and when I showed it to her, she kind of blew it off and said, "Oh well, I don't know that that's the case." And anyway, I digress. My point is, the people telling you that you might be doing something wrong or should do this instead, or, in the case that I'm making right here is giving these people who are asking questions on Reddit advice. Like it says right here, they're no smarter than you. They might be, even if what they're saying is true to their own experience, it might not be to yours. If you're in the, I guess I'll call it the entrepreneur scene, you can come up with a dozen brilliant ideas, and in reality, these ideas might be billion-dollar ideas. But people would probably argue with me on this, that it's execution is key. But I think there's I know there's a fair amount of luck to it. Well, to success, that is. But anyway, to wrap up my multiple points now. While I'm just talking here, giving the advice I can, I might be wrong. If you're dead set on, if I give you one answer and you're dead set on, I believe it's the opposite. You very well may be right. We're all just people. Success or not, or a history of success even, it doesn't guarantee future success, and your guess is as good as anyone else's. Anyway, let's get right into it. Is it wrong that all I want to do with a business is make a lot of money? I actually talked about this last episode to a certain extent. I think I called it like starting a business for the sake of selling a business, or starting for the sake of starting. And I'll give my quick answer, and that's no. Um, I personally, well, I was going to say that I personally started a business to make money, but I don't know that that's entirely true. I kind of treat it like it's a game to a certain extent. It's a fun challenge for me, and I enjoy just about every minute of it. I think it's a fair and reasonable goal to want to make money with your business, because it needs to, you need it to survive. And I guess you could get real deep with it and ask, well, if you were a millionaire, would you still run a business? Or, would you want to run a business to earn money as well? Would you run this business that's at a constant loss? Or, that's, I don't know. I don't know that I would. I might retire or have more casual projects or more, passion projects. But no, I don't think it's wrong to start a business for the sake of making money, or a lot of money. You could look at it like it's just another step in your challenge. If you like business to begin with, the next reasonable step is to have a successful business that earns a lot of money. And then who knows what your step is beyond that, to step down from your company and sit back and earn, or whatever it might be. And like I said, I did talk about this last episode, but I can go either way on the opinion of is it wrong to start a business for the sake of starting a business? And I would never tell anyone not to do that. That's not fair, and it's probably been done thousands of times before. But what I kind of summed up last time I talked about this was, start a business for whatever reason you have, however you can justify doing it, or whatever drives you. But focus that business around something that you're actually interested and passionate in. I can't cite any numbers. These are weekly collective stats, but I imagine that it's a significant failure rate if you're not genuinely interested in what you do. I think I said something like, focus start a business for whatever reason you want. If it's just to earn money, that's fine, but be passionate about what you do. And I guess the little loophole there is, if you're passionate about business, then do whatever you want, because it's all the same. I mean, I would almost say that qualifies for me. I enjoy the idea of marketing and business in general. So I think I could get plunked into just about any situation. A pet grooming company, or a lawn care business, or a roofing company, whatever it is. I think I could kind of mold myself and my mindset and enjoy just about anything that I could sit down and do. So I guess in closing, I certainly wouldn't tell you to feel wrong about it. Just do what you can to ensure its success by starting a business you're truly passionate in. And if that means holding off for a few months or years even till you come up with an idea that you think is honestly feasible, and that you can see yourself doing for years and years to come, then go for it. How do I make a sales call? He goes on to explain, I sell digital marketing, SEO, PPC, social and website development, offline marketing, and ad space in local daily newspapers. He says about 50,000 paid circulation. I've been here since April, and I've only sold one-time widgets in 2 contracts. It's worded a little funny. Is it me or my territory? How do I get some long-term things going? I have 200 accounts in my list, and only 5 are actively advertising, and the rest have churned. He says, I'm thinking of leaving and going to sell payroll or paychecks or Paycom, whatever that is. I'm unfamiliar. But I think this is something that a lot of people really suffer with, especially on the website of things. I can think of a handful of ways to kind of sell your, I was going to call it a brick and mortar store, but your physical service. If you're a lawn care company, door flyers, things like that. But he says he does things on the web. I mean, it almost sounds like he's targeting locally, which I guess I'll approach this from 2 sides. Locally is potentially easier. if I were him, lots of people suggest, go talk to business owners in person and, so on and so forth. And I've had zero success with that. I think I tried it over the span of a week, years ago, physically going into small businesses and, asking, is the owner available? Hey, I tried a number of ways, and it kind of seems like the consensus of how to approach it that way is to have a short packet or even just a flyer that says, hey, I'd like to talk to the business owner. Here's what I do. You can keep this. Is there a time when I'd be able to come back and do that? I tried it a number of different ways. That was one of them, and none of them had any results. Very rarely is the owner there, I've found, surprisingly. And you've got some, near minimum wage front desk worker that probably deals with this all the time. I've talked to people before and I've explained, I do website design and development, and she's like, oh, your people, people like you call my business every day. I talk to 3 of you a day. And so I can see how that kind of soliciting just gets brushed off like, oh, sure, the equivalent of a door-to-door salesman at your home trying to sell you cleaner. There's little chance that you're actively looking for cleaner, and in reality, you just want them to leave and stop bothering you. So my solution to that was more of telling you what not to do. If you're trying to target local companies, print out 1,000 flyers and go business to business, and don't even bother them. Don't stick them in their door if possible. I guess that might not be super applicable based on where you're from, and how business storefronts work. But even if you do have to go inside, and I'll kind of touch on this same kind of approach with the phone based or whatever, non-local. Go in and right off the bat, let them know you're not going to waste their time. And, I guess just that, I would take a flyer into a store or whatever it is, storefront. I probably wouldn't even ask if the owner's there. I would just hand it to whoever's behind the desk. Say, hey, I do website design and marketing. I don't want to waste your time. Take this, give this to the owner, the manager, whatever. Thanks, and have a good one. I feel like that's the best way to do it, and probably the best way to get a good response out of the person behind the desk that really is not super heavily invested in whether they have a website or not. Just the polite, I guess, non-threatening way you went about approaching it. If you want to go another step further, and it's almost sneaky to a certain extent, is you could fold it up or even put it in an envelope. Go in there and say, hey, can you give this to the owner, please? And just walk out. And it kind of looks like, to the person behind the desk, hey, this could be an invoice or something of importance. But at that point, you're almost being deceitful, where the manager will open that letter, and the equivalent of, and I'm sure you've received something like this, something in the mail that looks like it's handwritten. I got one of these the other day. It was from a cable company, and the envelope looked like it was handwritten. It was like from a single person. I thought, I don't recognize this, but it's directly to me. So I opened it up, and inside it is some printed card saying, welcome to the neighborhood, whatever. Here's our sale. And I won't say I was upset or anything like that. That'd be silly. But it put me off a lot. I was like, oh man, this very clever, and someone might fall for that, and it might cause them to keep looking or whatever. It got me to open it in the first place where I wouldn't have, so it accomplished that goal. And that's kind of what I was saying there. We'll get that manager to open it, but once they get it open, they see you're, essentially spamming them, they might be put off. And, whereas if you had been honest about it and, said, hey, I do marketing, this is, what I do. If you think I can help you, get in touch. So, maybe try a handful of some and a handful of the other, and see if anything pans out for you. The other side of this, the more complicated side, is doing it over the web. The problem with this, and it's just about with anything else, and you'll notice this if you go on reddit.com/r/small business or something like that, you'll see these posts all the time. On the internet, there's thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of people doing exactly what you do that are wanting the exact same business that you want. And there's, I'll give a kind of a crappy answer right here. There's no right way to market yourself online. You can, I guess, the most honest ways are to rank organically in the search engines or do, like Google AdWords, so you appear in front of the people that are actively searching for the services you offer. Anything short of that is intrusive, to say the least. So there's lots of people that say, I'm this new company. I want to help you. Here's my website, and they'll post on a small business forum. And if you go back through, I don't know exactly what you'd use to search it, but there's probably 10 of those a week. Everyone kind of thinking they're sly or thinking they've thought of something that somebody else hasn't. I've taken to like Facebook swap and shop groups. Those are an interesting, in a pretty decent market. It doesn't come across as too spammy if you don't abuse it. I see lots of people. I've seen pest control sites or pest control companies do it. I've seen pool cleaners, fence contractors, lots of things like that. Car detailing. Those are pretty common ones that are more applicable to. I realize this now. Local businesses, local local homeowners who need that service. That wouldn't work for a web designer online, but I'd suggest getting on. There's all sorts of small business groups on Facebook, things like that, but they're almost entirely overrun with I don't know, who knows, people posting their Sensi links or whatever other pyramid things they've got going on. They're rarely populated with real people that are actually interested in potentially what you have to offer. I guess my suggestion is don't cold call. Here's, I guess this is my secret, which is not really a secret at all. I'm sure there's thousands of people that do it, but it's what has worked so well for me. Is cold emails. And it seems silly, like it would come across as spam and immediately get dismissed, and it probably does most of the time. But I think the key there is to make your email seem genuine. A quick paragraph that says, "Hi, my name is Nick. I do website designs and marketing. I came across your business or your website. It looks like it used a redesign. If that's something you're interested in, get in touch. I'd be willing to give you a good deal." That's one of the things I always include in there. Actually, my email read something like, "I'm looking to broaden my portfolio." It's important to say it like that because if you say, "Oh, I'm looking to put new sites in my portfolio," it makes it seem like you're starting out or whatever. To broaden it makes it seem like, "Oh, I want to touch all these corners of the web. I'm a successful long-term web designer already, but I've got this void for this type of service," things like that. And also say, "If so, I'd be willing to give you a decent discount." Those two things, along with the short and quick email, I think are kind of the perfect mix of things to potentially get the highest success rate, I guess. I get lots of spam. Seems like they're from the same people, almost daily, that are 5 or 6 paragraphs long and have a giant bulleted list of really just like buzzwords. I guess other people wouldn't know that, but they'll kind of list search engine optimization, pay-per-click, social media marketing, including Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, blah, 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 just on and on and on. And that might work for some people. And maybe it is because they're actively sending them and they have been for months to me. So they're obviously in business enough to keep doing that. But for, in my opinion, to have this highest success rate, cold emailing is what I would suggest to this person. Again, his question was how to make a sales call. He went on to explain the services he offers, and he hasn't had a lot of luck. That's only the contact portion of it. There's a chance, I won't say it's likely, but there's a chance that you're messing up somewhere beyond that. Maybe you're getting in front of people, but your initial conversation seems threatening. Sounds strange, but doesn't seem trusting or whatever it might be. Maybe you're not doing a good job of communicating with these people. Now that's something that the emailing can solve. Sometimes if you're not a good customer service person on the phone, I I know a lot of people have trouble with that. They can write the most professional email or email correspondences, back and forth. But when it comes to talking on the phone, they get choked up and stutter and whatever. So cold emailing might be a good approach for you because you can kind of calculate your responses and things like that. And there's also a possibility that you're not offering competitive prices or something. It's important to know your market. And I'm not afraid to admit that I scale my pricing largely based on my clients. And that almost sounds dishonest. And it's not that I have a small base price and I increase it for higher end clients, whatever you'd call it, doctors, lawyers who have a marketing budget. It's more the other way around. I've got pretty high rates as a standard, but if I'm working with one guy in his truck who's starting a moving company, I know they're scraping pennies together, and I scale my pricing accordingly to make it feasible for them. And I talked about doing pro bono work the other day, and it's kind of along the lines of that, especially in a situation like this fella's in, not having the ability to make any sales and having been there since April and just not having a lot of luck. Consider reducing your prices, or consider that's a factor that's working against you. I can value my service at whatever I think it's worth. In reality, the website I design you might be worth $3,000, but I can ask for that till I'm blue in the face. But the number of sales I'll make versus doing it for 1,000 or 500 or 250 or whatever I can, justify my time being worth. But to make an adjustment like that might solve a portion of your problems. It's hard to say. If I were you, I'd take a step back, look at your entire process, and see what you're doing wrong. And this, I'm almost positive this isn't the case for you, but lots of people get in this kind of strange rut, like grooves on a record, where they might be hopping on their computer at 9 a.m, sitting down, getting ready to do work, and 5 o'clock comes, or whatever arbitrary time restraints you've set on yourself. You sit on the computer to do work, to work on your business, and you're on the computer for 4 hours or 8 hours, and you get off the computer and you haven't done anything all day. And that's an extreme case. You might do one thing, or you might send out 10 emails like you've told yourself to do or whatever, but you do this day after day, and you're just puzzled. Oh, why isn't this, why aren't I having any success? My business is not doing well. Well, do something different. Sit back and really lay out the steps of what you're doing, every aspect of it. In this guy's case, I'd look at, how am I approaching these people? What am I saying when I approach these people? What's my personal website look like? Are we getting that far? Are they ever contacting me back? If they are contacting me back, at what point am I losing them? Are my prices too high? Am I not quick enough to respond? Do I seem sketchy and like somebody that can't be trusted? Really break down what you're doing and try and find out for yourself where it's going wrong. I can speculate all day, but I think, if you're business minded in the least, you should be able to kind of look at it from an outside perspective and analyze it and figure out, oh, this may or may not be where it's breaking down or whatever, however you'd word it, and figuring out what you can do to possibly get it to the next step. That kind of segues into this next question. It seems silly at first glance, but I figured I'd humor it because it seems to get asked a lot. The question is, you've got $1 million idea. What next? And he goes on to explain, sometime I'll think I'm onto something with an idea, but I don't know what to do next. What are the following steps for making your idea a reality? Like I said, it's a silly open-ended question, almost too open-ended. But it gets asked enough that I think it's a legitimate concern for some people. And, as with all things in life, sometimes just getting a little push can make all the difference. some people do get overwhelmed with certain things, and everyone's brain works differently. I'm sure there have been tons of successful entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever that are kind of the same way, that just had all these great ideas and just needed to get started initially, and from there they'd be just fine. There's also a chance that business might not be for you, but that's something I talk about a lot, and I try it before you give up. I guess that's all I can say there. Anyway, what I would do is, I don't know, and this is one of the, I'm gonna rant for a second. This is one of the things that kind of bothers me, because when somebody asks a question like this, somebody will go cite some paper that was written by just another you or me, and they'll never give real legitimate advice, applicable advice. And I guess I don't have anywhere to go with this rant, but my suggestion to you is, if you're in one of these entrepreneur communities, small business, entrepreneur startups, whatever it might be, advertising, marketing, these are all subreddits, and somebody asks a question that you might think is dumb or whatever, spend 5 minutes and type out a legitimate, thoughtful response. Don't be one of those people that cites some, I don't want to use the word study because it gives it too much credit, that cites a consulting blog or a marketing blog that uses a bunch of jargon that the average person can't understand. Give a real thought out response. That's kind of the goal of this podcast in general, is to make things easily digestible, I guess, more approachable, whatever you'd call it. The goal is to make it friendly and understandable, and kind of put it in layman's terms, while it being helpful at the same time. Anyway, it's hard to say without knowing your idea, but do what works best for you. If you're not able to kind of hash it out mentally, start writing things down. I'll find like business business plan templates on Google Docs, and that helps me. I never intend to present these to people or anything like that, but if you find the right one, I think it's probably the highest rated one on there. I've used it a few times. It asks everything you could ever imagine needing to write down about your business, and it's broad enough that you can apply it to anything, and you can kind of just pull out what's not applicable to you and delete it or not answer it. That's a good way to do it, and it kind of forces you to think about things you haven't thought about. It forces you to write things down, to make definitive decisions, and then to start to act on them. I had a music related project, and it's still in the works. But that was the first step I did. I kind of hashed it out in my head and dealt with some prototype stuff in the garage and things like that. But it wasn't until I sat down, for example, I sat down and the first thing it asks is, "Oh, what's your business name?" And that's a pretty insignificant portion of that whole process, but it was something I hadn't thought about. And obviously I would have thought about it eventually, but the first page, I actually went and pulled it up. The first page has a using this template section, and I'll just read the 9 points here, and you can take them for what they're worth. It says, do your research, determine who the plan is for, do not attempt to fill it in from start to finish. It goes on to explain, first decide which sections are relevant to your business and set aside those that don't apply. And being like I explained that it's more for you than anyone else, despite it saying, determine who the plan is for. You can jump around and, fill in what's on your mind at the moment. If there's a section that seems a little overly complicated, skip it, move on to the next one. And I wanted to use the term, what seems fun. And that's, obviously you got to buckle down and do what needs to be done. But at the same time, it kind of goes with, do what you're passionate about. If there's a certain aspect of the business that's really interesting, you want to write about the products or the services or your pitch or whatever, go ahead and do that. It says, get some help. I've skipped a few there, so there aren't actually 9. It says, get some help, which is a good idea. And I suppose that's what you're doing by posting on the subreddit, but not quite in the way that anyone else would suggest doing. In the future, an idea is to be more specific. Don't be afraid to tell people your idea, and you'll get a lot of real nasty feedback of people telling you that your idea sucks and all that, but hopefully you can see some value, even from the jerks. So get some help, ask a professional. If you've got the budget, hire a real consultant, not some Joe Schmo on the internet, a business advisor or whatever. Or if you have somebody in the family that might own a business, things like that. Actual versus expected figures. It suggests to look at an existing business that does something similar to what you do and try to figure out what you'll learn. And maybe that's good advice. Look at your competition, see how they do it, and I'll read the rest of this. But I kind of came up with something in my head. It's to just do it. Just look at your idea. There's going to be a million things you have to do. If I want to start a cupcake company, actually that's a bad one because you got to do food licenses and things like that. Let's pretend I want to start a moving company. Right off the bat, I'm going to need a moving truck. I'll need to market myself. I'll need a website. Need to register the business, and insurance and whatever goes along with that. But out of those, and there's probably a dozen more things I need to do. Pick one. Pick whatever you can do. That day or within the week or whatever. If you've got the budget for a truck, hop on Craigslist and price trucks. If you don't, find somebody to design your website. Or if you don't have a budget for that, if you've already got it, pretend you already have a truck and that's what spawned the idea in the first place. Learn how to make a website. Get on whatever those free website things are, web.com, Weebly, whatever they are, and create your own website. Call up City Hall, go down to City Hall, see what it takes to register your business, have your $100 or $200 or whatever it costs to get your license, and figure out how to get bonded and insured, whatever the case. I could go on for hours. Pick one thing in your process. If it helps to write down, I have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then I'll be good. Pick whichever one, pick the hardest one to do today, pick the easiest one, pick whichever one you feasibly can do, whatever. I think that's the key, is to just do it. And that sounds like a cop-out of advice, but I think it's the advice that anyone would give. It says number 8 on this list, which is probably number 6 that I've read, is write your summary last. Go ahead and fill out everything else you've got. Kind of wrap your own mind around your project. There'll be lots of things that you come up with, lots of things throughout the process that you realize are not feasible. If you want to start a company and sell 12 different custom-made products, you might realize that you physically can't do one, or you're actually going to have to charge one, or while you designed it for this purpose, in writing this, you realize it might be really great for this purpose. Then it says review, which is especially, I don't know how to word that, which is especially beneficial, I guess, to our situation, because we plan to not give this to anybody. It's kind of the equivalent of learning how to draw, I guess. That's a weird comparison, but draw that picture over and over again, erase the parts that look ugly, start over, and whatever. This is just for you to kind of hone your. It sounds like it's almost turning into a practice kind of thing. Which, as a side note, that's not a bad idea. Come up with a totally fictional business idea, and write a business plan for it, just to kind of get in the habit of doing it and consider things you haven't considered. But anyway, review, rewrite sections, perfect things, really analyze your own idea. Like I was explaining earlier, that's a mistake that I think a lot of people make, is they just kind of get set in their ways, or they don't, they have a like blinders on, like a horse, and they don't look to the side, and they don't care to think about what they're doing. They're just kind of going through the motions, and I think that can hurt you a lot in the long run. That might be what you're doing. You're kind of sitting there saying, oh, well, where do I get started? I don't know. And well, like if you took a step back and thought about it, you just go ahead and get started on one thing. It can be overwhelming, and without knowing exactly what you do, you can't give any better advice. But just go for it. Just pick one thing and do it. Write it all down. Whether it's you make a spreadsheet, you scratch it down on a sticky note, or you go and fill out that huge business plan. Just pick one thing on your list and go for it. And in doing so, you might realize that your business idea is not feasible, or It'd be easier this way or that way, and I don't know. There's no other way to get started but just to get started. This next question actually segues right from the first and second topic into this one. Um, it's should I be looking for a partner, or should I pay somebody to design my project? And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. First, I always give silly disclaimers like this, but let's pretend you have an idea for an app, and you post somewhere asking, hey, I've got this idea and I need somebody to develop it. How do I do this? People will tell you, oh, just give up. Ideas are a dime a dozen, whatever. You'll never succeed with just an idea. Blah blah blah. Why does anyone need you if you're just an idea person? I mean, it's a really toxic way to approach things, and it really disappoints me when I see people talking like that. But anyway, if you're in that situation, say you've got an application idea, a smartphone app, or a smartphone game, or whatever it actually might be, and you have no development knowledge. Some people will suggest learn how to code. I never really look at that like it's a viable option. If you're a super quick learner, or you've got a really simple app, or there's really no time constraints, go for it. But I feel like, if you've got even a semi-complicated app, to learn how to develop an application and to do it well from the ground up. It's kind of like the website thing. You can design your own website, but it'll take you weeks to do, and it'll be subpar at best. And I feel like that's the same for developing your own application. You'll by no means be a professional, and you'll be, I guess, starting I don't know if this is the right term, but you'll be starting a professional business. I mean, it's just not something I'd recommend. If you're gonna put all your eggs in that basket, it should be of decent quality. So that's not something I would suggest. Is not that he mentioned that, but just in case you were considering it, it's not something I would suggest trying to do. As for the actual question I was asked, looking for a partner versus paying somebody outright, I'd go with paying. If you have the budget for it, without a doubt, pay for a number of reasons. If I'm sitting on $2,000 to get my application designed, and I actually don't know if that's a fair app price or high or low or whatever, and I guess it would depend on what you're looking for, but let's pretend in this perfect world, $2,000 is the amount that I need to develop this app. If you've got that, you can hop on whatever those sites are. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but they're, the sites where there's thousands of developers waiting to get paired up with people who actually are looking to pay to have their projects designed. You can get started, in the next 24 hours and have them quote you 2 weeks to have it done, or 3 or 4 or whatever it is, and you'll be started right out the door. And while it's being designed, you can focus on the marketing aspect of it or whatever. It kind of falls back on that other question of how do I start my business? But if you've got the budget, or even if not, if you're working a 9 to 5, set aside money. Set aside $500 for the next 4 months, and by that 4th month you'll have it. I wouldn't dismiss the value of having a partner, especially one that's technically minded. But there's a handful of other things that come along with that. You have to give them a portion of your company, or however that works. If they're volunteering, they may or may not have the incentive to plug away for 6 hours in front of the computer working on it. There's a, I don't know, you can get one extreme or the other. Either this person is your friend or a family member or whatever, and they're on the more lenient side of your radar, I guess you could say. Or the opposite side of that, they're a stranger. The stranger thing is almost more bothersome because they may or may not be local. You have to kind of deal. I've dealt with this a lot in the past, actually. In running browser-based games, I've had volunteers. Oh, would you like to get a portion of the revenue and, develop things for it. And they'll say, yeah, sure. And, a couple weeks will go by when they're supposedly working on a feature and they'll say, oh, I'm not interested anymore. Or they'll drop off the face of the earth, whatever. It's all sorts of nonsense like that you'll have to deal with. And that's assuming you can find somebody to begin with. That's like a best case scenario, that you get somebody that says they're interested and blows you off. What's more likely to happen is you'll post around for weeks or months or years or whatever, and you'll never get any help. You'd have to have a pretty great idea, or a pretty invested developer, I guess, to get somebody to work on a volunteer basis. There's absolutely no shortage of people. And I hate to sound like I'm mocking somebody, because this, it's probably a viable way to get things done, especially if you have no other options. But get on a web developer for hire, or looking for a web developer or an app developer or something, and just see the hundreds of posts you'll find, immediately, of people saying, I've got this idea and I just need a partner. You can have 30% of my company and whatever, and that's all fine and great, but the chances of your app really taking off, or your website idea really taking off is slim. On the website of things, I've had people approach me with that before. Lots of people, and they always have kind of the same. They carry themselves the same. They're always a little crazy sounding, whatever, and that's not always the case. Definitely not. But in my experience, these people will call me and say, "Oh, I've got this idea for this website that." A gal called me a couple months ago. She found an ad on Craigslist that I'd posted, and I couldn't get her to give me a straight answer about what she did. But the idea was, if you go, like a car dealership will say, here's you'll come down and test drive this new 2015 whatever, and we'll give you a $25 Visa gift card. She called those like gift vouchers or whatever. And somehow, like I said, she wouldn't give me a straight answer. It was strange. Somehow that is her business. Like she has a way to get vouchers for cheaper than other people, and she can provide them to the dealerships. I don't know. It sounded like she would sell them money in card form for cheaper than it was. I don't know. I don't know. After 2 minutes on the phone with her, I didn't care to ask her any more questions. But anyway, she approached me and said, "Oh, I'm sure this will take off. I've talked to a business attorney, and they were so impressed, and they said I need to get this and that legalized and whatever, and it'll so take off. I just need you to design this and this and this and this and this, and spend the next 3 months working on this, and I'll have lots of changes," and things like that. Just real silly talk, that in reality will never come to. And if you get on any of those boards and try to approach it like that, you're going to look near the same. You can present yourself as well as you want, but what it comes down to is you're asking that developer to spend time they would likely be spent either earning money or enjoying their free time working on something that will not likely come to. And shucks, it sounds like I'm really talking down on the idea of doing it that way. And I know, there's no shortage of things. I'll let out the inner Apple fanboy and say, Apple was founded that way. It was, two buddies designing something that they wanted to design for their friends, and doing it at no cost initially, or however they actually did it. I don't care. But I won't dismiss that having a business partner isn't an awesome thing, especially if you can find one. There's lots of days where I wish I had a business partner sitting next to me that was, bit for bit as like-minded as me. Same goals, same mindset, same drive, things like that. Even just somebody to turn to and say, hey, is this a nice design, or hey, who knows? Just a I'll word this funny, just to shoot the relevant shit with. It would be immensely helpful. But that's not something I've been able to find, and I think you'd have a hard time finding it yourself as well. And that's finding it is one thing, but it seems like it would get really messy trying to work up ownership or whatever. And I'll put it really bluntly. And I really feel like one of those guys on the subreddit right now, but it's something I'm pretty passionate about, is that nobody wants equity in your company. Gosh, and I don't know. I'm having a real internal battle here with trying to say something so definitively like that, because, and I don't know anything about these, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, all these, Snapchat, that ended up blowing up real big, they might have had a business partner. Some guy might have been non-tech savvy and, said, hey, I've got this idea. Kind of like the Apple thing, I guess. Steve Jobs was not tech savvy, but he could market it. And, granted, Steve Wozniak had already created what he wanted to sell, but he said, hey, let's do that. And, from then on, he said, hey, let's design it like this instead, and let's do this and add this. And so partnerships have worked in the past, but for these really adventurous, I guess, these large scale apps, if you've got, I don't know, I don't want to just rag on somebody's idea, and I would hate to tell this to somebody and have their success not come to because they listened to me. But I guess I'll put it like this. I'll give you the best of both worlds. If you can, pay for whatever to be developed. Pay to have your website made, pay to have your app made, whatever. If that's not an option, look for a partner. I don't really have any advice on how to do that. If you know somebody in person, I imagine that's probably how the majority of those things came to. I'm probably wrong about all these, but let's pretend Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and whatever were started by, two guys who knew each other in real life. To do it outside of that, I just feel like it'd be a real headache. And I get it that some people just absolutely do not have the budget to have something made. And I don't know. I think most of the people that would say that would actually be able to make it happen. They could cut back on their spending, or they could, sell something you have. If you've got some toys or electronics laying around, just make it happen. This is kind of off on another path, but if you're in one of those situations where you can get your app designed for $2,000, but you don't really have the money, and you'd rather go to the bar on the weekend and spend $50, rethink your priorities. Sell your extra game console, or whatever it might be. That sounds really specific, but I think it's something that people will probably encounter with a startup. I could do this, but it's going to cost so much money. I don't know. That's part of being a business owner, is kind of not even taking the risks. You're not selling your car in hopes that you can buy it back. It's just, setting yourself up to be a little uncomfortable at times. And I guess you'd call it risk to a certain extent. I don't know, but that's something to consider as well. Make step slightly out of your comfort zone and do something that you're on the fence of to make your business successful. It's a part of doing it. It's a part of the journey. All right. Well, it looks like that does it for episode 4 of Weekly Collective. As always, let us know what you thought. If you have any topics you want us to discuss, send them our way. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/Weekly Collective. We're obviously on iTunes. Again, Weekly Collective. Also on SoundCloud. That's where it's hosted originally. Any and all of those places, you can reach us. Like, I suppose you can on iTunes. You can leave a rating there. But anyway, let us know what you thought, what we can do to make it better. If you got any topic ideas or questions you want to ask, that's my favorite part of doing this show, is answering questions. Whether they're right or wrong, or you get any value out of them. I think it helps to be able to ask somebody that won't give you the runaround, and we'll speak from experience, and really what I think the value of asking around here is that you don't get a bunch of negativity. You don't get people ripping you apart and kicking you and tearing you down. You get somebody that actually kind of wants you to succeed. So anyway, thanks for listening. As always, check us out wherever you haven't, whatever's most convenient for you. And as always, we'll talk to you next week.